Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. We have a really fantastic guitarist with us today, a very cool guy. We're with Doug Jackson. Doug's been the lead guitar player and background vocalist for Ambrosia for the last 18 years, probably 19 years since the time I wrote this. We've been trying to connect for a long time. Ambrosia's been around obviously for a really long time. They started in 1970 and they're probably one of the longest running bands still playing. Doug was born in Dallas, Texas, began playing guitar at age 6, and eventually settled in Evergreen, Colorado, a small town in the Rocky Mountains. After high school, he studied at Berkeley College of Music in Boston. He moved to Los Angeles in 1983 with absolutely no connections. He decided to join the Musicians Union with hopes of meeting other players. While doing that, he overheard Tony Rizzi's Wire Choir rehearsing in an adjacent room, and the then 19-year-old Doug asked Tony if he could audition to be a sub. 2 weeks later, he got a call, and soon after, he began meeting weekly in Hollywood. That goes to show you that's called having balls, man. Good for you, Doug. It is, man. 19. Hey, Doug's work. You may not get it, but if you don't ask, you're certainly not going to get it, right?
Knock and you shall receive.
That's it, brother. Doug's worked as a studio musician, playing alongside Abe Laboriel and Jeff Porcaro, and has appeared on NBC, CBS, Showtime, Fox, Disney, and Baywatch, and numerous other TV shows. In 1990, Doug played a couple of nights a week at the world-famous Baked Potato in Don Randy's house band. Doug's performed with hundreds of well-known acts, including Kenny Loggins, Gary Wright, Al Stewart, Marie Osmond, Iron Butterfly, Mac Davis, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Nancy Sinatra, Dweezil Zappa, Michael McDonald, Dave Mason, Denny Lane of Paul McCartney and Wings, Edgar Winter, Billy Preston, Stephen Bishop, Marty Ballin from Jefferson Starship, Rick Derringer, Bob Welch originally from Fleetwood Mac, Terry Sylvester of the Hollies, and Joey Molland of Badfinger. Doug's also released 2 solo instrumental CDs, which we'll talk about today. One of them is called Storm Chaser, and the other one's called The Performance, which have been praised by Guitar Magazine, Total Guitar Magazine, Inside Music Cast, and Minor7th.com. Doug, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm glad we finally got to connect.
Craig, I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You've been playing since age 6. That is unusually young. How did that come about, and were you therefore set on guitar as a lifelong path at that young of an age?
I think that my father wanted to probably pursue music, and I remember dragging plastic and garbage guitars around the house, probably when I was 3 or 4 years old. There's pictures of me doing this, but I don't have a recollection of that. But I do recall around 6 years old starting to take guitar lessons.
Wow.
And my teacher immediately got me started learning how to read.
Holy crap. And you took to it at that young of an age.
Yeah, I mean, I had to work at it, but it came pretty naturally for me.
That's great.
In terms of the concept of it, just putting, looking at the notes on the page and being able to put it together. And I was kind of going through. I started out with the very simple Mel bass stuff, and went through all of that, and then my graduated up to the Carlisi classical guitar method stuff probably when I was about 10 years old or something like that.
Holy shit, that's pretty impressive, man. So it's safe to say you were inherently, you were intuitively gifted with music is probably a very fair statement.
I think so, yeah. I definitely have a lot of weaknesses, but I felt like it came pretty naturally.
I have never met a musician that's a good guy that ever would say yes. It's always like, well, maybe, I guess, kind of. I have other weaknesses I got to work on. It's very, very, it's very humbling. It's great. That's why I love talking to music. All you guys are so freaking humble. It's awesome. when you went to Berkeley, was there any cool players that you went with at the time that some of the listeners might recognize their names today?
There are the one that the two that people that I actually had relationships with. One is a guy named Vadim Zilberstein. Vadim played with Chaka Khan and Earth, Wind and Fire. And Vadim and I at Berkeley were pals and hung out a lot. And I remember the very first time I heard him play, and I was blown away. The guy's a monster jazz guitar player. And anyway, but we established a relationship and used to walk around Boston together and, do our thing. And then through him, I met the drummer Zorro. Zorro played with Lenny Kravitz and Bobby Brown. And so I knew him. I didn't hang out with Zorro at school much other than, eating and, having dinner occasionally. But Vadim was somebody I was, had a relationship with. And a couple other people that Ian Froman, who's a monster drummer, a jazz drummer from Toronto, was another friend of mine who I believe he's teaching at New England Conservatory, or he was. But he's like, he'd won all these major scholarships and stuff. And Makoto Ozone, who played one of the greatest piano players I've ever heard. He's done stuff with Chick Corea and Gary Burton. And a guy named Cyrus Chestnut was another guy.
Piano. Yeah, I know him. Yeah, he's
so
really
anyway,
a good player.
Those are the four guys that were there during that period.
Very cool. Hey, what made you go cross country to Berkeley? That's a pretty big move, as opposed to like Musicians Institute or anything that was out west.
I was actually looking into another school at the time. At the time, it was called North Texas State University. Now it's called University of North Texas
in Denton.
Correct. And they have one of the strongest music programs in the world.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned at the time, and they're still monstrous. One of the reasons I was considering them so heavily is I was heavily influenced in my teenage years by my junior high instructor, Ross McClure, and very, very profoundly by my high school teacher, Jim Stranahan, who's a saxophone player in the Denver area. And, he played in all the big jazz bands in that area. And the high school that I went to, that Jim was the instructor of, just had an amazing music program. And it was a jazz program. And it was, I was exposed to a lot of big band music, like Freddie Green style playing on the guitar. So I wasn't, during those years, I was actually listening to a lot of, Toshiko Akiyoshi, big band, and Woody Herman, Count Basie. So it was very non-guitar oriented music. But I was learning a lot about harmony and arranging, and at the same time, I had my rock band with my buddy that we were doing at the same time. So I had multiple things happening. But that was kind of, did I get way off the question?
No, you're fine. You're just talking, you're talking about like what you were doing at that time. And then you were going to talk about how it related to your decision to go to Berkeley.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Texas.
Thanks. I can go down these paths and get lost.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Yeah, so North Texas was definitely on the radar for me because they had their famous 1 O'Clock band. And I mean, even now you can check them out. They're just insane. They're so good. But I had been really influenced by the Lab 75 record, which Lyle Mays from Pat Metheny wrote all the music for. So this is before anybody knew who Lyle Mays was. So him, I think Pat Coyle might have played on it too. Pat Coyle plays with Michael McDonald's band.
Okay.
But anyway, this big band was doing all this crazy stuff, and I was learning about arranging and stuff. So this was, a big factor. I picked Berkeley because it was a very guitar focused kind of situation. And the story is that, you know, Boston has more great guitar players on one city block than most cities have completely.
Yeah.
So that was compelling. It was like, well, you know, my dad, who was very influential on me, basically said, Doug, if you want to be good at something, hang out with guys who are better than you. So
Great
I
advice.
decided to jump into the deep end of the pool and get humbled a little more.
Yeah. No, good for you, man. That's great advice. Hey, I want to talk about some of the cuts off your records. First, though, your first record was called Storm Chaser. I was just curious, what prompted you to release a record in the first place?
I had over the years, I did a lot of writing. I was constantly writing tunes, and I compiled a whole ton of stuff. And it wasn't necessarily in any particular genre, but it all kind of was. I would write it, and then I would just get on a piece of paper, and I'd store it away. And then I would start. I put a trio together and went out and played live in LA with that. And
A jazz trio?
it was a jazz trio, and it was the music I was writing was very kind of specific towards that. And the reason I liked to play in a trio is because it gave me a lot of liberties.
Oh, yeah.
You know, as far as harmonically and melodically where I could go with something. But anyway, I had done a bunch of demos with some of these tunes, and then I had met a buddy of mine, Keith Kukta, who's a recording engineer, and we started talking about this idea of doing a record. So we had done some demos, and I was just thinking, you know, this needs to have some rock to it, you know, because I have a lot of, that's kind of the belly of my playing, you know, even though I was in this jazz mode at the time, and I can do that, but I wanted to kind of do something where I was able to merge the two, which I guess is called fusion, whatever they call that. But I was looking at more like, I want to try to write a tune that has the sensibilities of rock with a little bit more compelling harmonic structure. So I started throwing stuff together, and we just decided, hey, man, let's try to do this. And I called, I got Mark Craney, who monster drummer. I mean, all the, you know, guys like Weckl and Vinnie Colaiuta, like, love this guy.
Wow.
He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. But Mark played drums on it, and Mark was great, and he had a real dry wit to him that I miss. He's a great guy, an amazing drummer. And I had Rick Fiorabracci playing bass. Rick played with Frank Gambale and Chick Corea.
Right, I knew his name. That's right.
And so we just started tracking as a trio. So I tried to do a record that kept to the sensibilities of a trio, and I tried to do as little overdubbing as possible. I ended up sweetening with, you know, rhythm stuff behind, because on a lot of the stuff, the harmony was so ambiguous that I needed it to have some definition. So, you know, I'd go back and layer some you know, chordal things behind it in order to give it a little more harmonic structure, as opposed to it sounding so free. Like, what is this guy playing? You know, all these notes. It's like, that sounds weird. But when you put the chords on it, it gives it context. So
Well, it's good that you realized, I think, that, because a lot of times people are like really too close to it, because, you know, you're listening to it and you're like, of course I can make this out. But, you know, it's good that you kind of you looked at it with third party eyes in a sense and said, you know, people might struggle with this. Let me layer you know, some more chordal structure behind it.
Yeah. And this was probably, you know, getting past the stage in my head, which was getting out of my ego, which is, I want to just do this as a trio, and I don't want to add anything to it, because that, you know, appears to make me look like a weaker musician. Now, this is just the kind of stupid thinking that was going on in my head. And at the time, I guess I was 29, 28 or 29 when we started tracking. Anyway, that's ridiculous thinking. It's so stupid. I'm very proud of the record. It's got a lot of angst in it. It's definitely, in your face. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but I believe it's probably, from an electric perspective, as far as my skill set, probably the best demonstration of what I was, capable of doing at that time. So, and I'm proud of it, and and I went out and played, the Baked Potato and places like that here in LA, and it also was kind of a springboard, as you will, for other opportunities. Because when I gave it to people and they heard it, it's like, oh wow, they liked it or they didn't like it, but actually, kind of a funny story. I had sent a demo of one of those tunes off of that record before I was finished making the record. I sent it to a guy named Dave Boroff. Dave plays all the saxophone stuff on all the David Foster tunes. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the movie with Rob Lowe and Demi Moore where the guy's playing the sax. It's a very famous tune. But anyway, I sent a demo to him because he had a band that played at the Flying Jib and some clubs in LA, and he had all the, Vinny and all these guys playing in his band. So I sent it, never heard anything. 2 years later, I get this phone call.
That's great. He
says, is this Doug Jackson? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is Dave Boroff, Reverend Dave Boroff, because the Reverend is his nickname. He's not a real Reverend.
Okay.
He's more irreverent. He's a great guy, a great player. And anyway, he said, I just heard your tape. I'm like, oh wow, I sent that to you 2 years ago.
That's balls that he said that. Actually, I just heard your tape. That's pretty funny.
Anyway, he said, would you? I was cleaning up my drawers and I found it and I stuck it in the tape player while I was cleaning up my drawer. Anyway,
that's like anyway, a backhanded compliment. Continue.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, he just basically said, "Would you be interested in being a sub?" I've got I think he was Michael Thompson was his regular guitar player. Excuse me, and I said absolutely. So. I got to do that with him, occasionally. I got off track again, but that was kind of related to the record in the sense that when I was handing stuff out, I was able to.
Yeah, you got some jobs off
get my talent out there. Yeah. So it was another way things happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, if you don't do something, nothing will happen. Doing something doesn't guarantee it, but
Right. That's for sure.
I want to talk about a couple of tracks on there. There's one track from Storm Chaser called Motormouth. Great song. I thought it was, it really kept pushing the whole way through. And it reminded me of, you ever heard that song by Hammerhead by Pat Travers?
Yes.
And
absolutely.
You know how the sense of urgency there, it reminded me of that, it's just got to get to it. And I was curious, is there a backstory to that song, and if you remember what guitar you were playing on?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Pat Travers because I love that live version of "Boom Boom Out Go the Lights."
Man, who doesn't? That's our age. Who doesn't in our age bracket?
I love that song.
Yeah. I'm supposed to have him coming on the show now. I just spoke with his wife.
Oh, that's awesome. He's great. There's not really a backstory to the tune. Basically, it was the last song that was tracked on the album, and I needed one more tune. I needed something that was kind of ballsy, and I wanted to write a shuffle type feel. And this was during the sessions, and I went home one night after a session and I wrote it. It was just kind of like, what can I write that is as bombastic as possible? and so it has that bombastic kind of vibe to it, yet a lot of the lines are kind of from a jazz thing, actually, because there's a lot of where I'll play like off the tritone substitution of what the chordal thing is. So it was kind of like mixing that heavy metal shuffle with a kind of bit of that bebop sensibility harmonically.
Yeah, it worked.
I played a black Stratocaster with EMG pickups in it. And the backstory behind that particular guitar is that a friend gave it to me. It was a barroom guitar, and the neck had been snapped on it twice. So the glue, there was two big lines going. The headstock had been broken and re-glued, and then right in the middle of the neck, it had been broken and re-glued. So anyway, that was the guitar I used on a big chunk of the record, because its sound is so just ferocious.
Yeah, it's very strong.
It had a very ferocious sound to it. So unfortunately, that guitar ended kind of the way I got it. It got a third scar. So that guitar is no longer. But I'm glad I got to use it and get it documented.
You know, you don't hear about headstocks going on Fenders. You hear Gibson all day long, but I haven't heard too many of Fenders.
Well, it was a barroom guitar, so I think it had gotten thrown.
Yeah,
somebody threw it and it got snapped. And it was funny because when my buddy let me play it, I'm like, this thing sounds amazing. It looked beat up, but hey, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't judge a book by its cover.
No way, man. Also from Storm Chaser, there's a song on there called Another Rhyme, Another Face. It's a really pretty ballad. You get a lot of really warm arpeggios. Any backstory to that? And was that the same Strat?
Actually, no. I played a Charvel that I had at the time on that song. And I've always been a big fan, of harmony. So I was trying to write a song that I felt was a beautiful, simplistic melody with some interesting chordal stuff going on underneath it. That's kind of stuff you don't expect. That kind of comes out of nowhere. So, and that was again a trio thing, and really there's nothing more really about that. I would say that tune was heavily influenced by Pat Metheny, because I'm, a huge Pat Metheny fan, especially in my early years, around 14, when I first got turned on to Pat playing in music. I mean, to me, he's just incredible.
That's a great track. And then you have The Performance, which is an all acoustic album. What made you release that? Because it's like, almost 180 degrees opposite in a way. Not the playing, but just, all electric, all acoustic. The one thing is that album had great mastering and engineering. And I was curious, was that you that did that, or did you work with somebody? And
my dear friend and longtime friend, Craig Patterson from Denver, did the engineering and the mastering on that record, and he's a brilliant guy. And we did most of the record was recorded out there
in Denver,
in the Denver area. Yeah, two of the tracks one was recorded in Laguna Beach, and one was recorded in Venice Beach. But the actual chunk of the record was done by Craig. And, I've got him to thank for how he managed to capture the sound that was way beyond my expectations. And I'm grateful for that. He's a very talented guy and a dear friend. How I kind of been a closet acoustic guitar player. Not in the sense that I wouldn't go out and play publicly, but this solo thing that I was doing, I had been doing it for a long time. I had gotten turned on to Alex DeGrassi when I was like 15. The Windham Hill label stuff, that's now defunct, I believe. And when I heard that, I just started listening to all these different guys like Michael Hedges and I just started, writing these tunes, and I never had any really plan to record a record. It came way later in my life, actually, after I had accumulated a ton of songs. I had, at the end of, I was doing a recording session, and at the end of the session, my buddy, the engineer, I said, "Hey, could you just record me playing this tune?" Because I was just curious. So we did, and it was like, "Oh, this is great, thank you." And then I had that song, right? And it just sat there forever, and I had it. And then a couple of years later, my friend Talik, the great harmonica player, wanted to do an acoustic guitar record, and he had brought me a cover that he had done of "She's Leaving Home" with another guitar player, and he brought it to me and said, "I'd like to do this, but this particular arrangement's not the direction I really want to go. Do you think you could do something with this?" I said, "Well, I'll give it a shot." So I did, and we recorded it up in Venice Beach, up at Chris Horvath's studio. And then I was like, well, I've got two really good ones now. Maybe I should keep going, So what I would do is I wasn't playing a whole bunch of acoustic all the time. So the amount of energy and time to practice to get this stuff together was pretty grueling, because, it's all one pass guitar stuff. It's, so I would practice for, weeks and months sometimes, just to get enough material together where I could actually get through the whole song and play it as flawlessly as possible. There's mistakes all over it, but that's kind of the way it started out. And I would go out and I'd record 4 tunes and then, come back and do some more. So anyway, it just kind of, it wasn't something I first originally set out to do. It was just like, well, I've got these tunes, I might as well. And it just, life kind of kept promoting it.
Yeah. The universe was supporting it, man.
Exactly.
Did you, you said that you really couldn't, can you not overdub with these, or you just didn't want to?
No, you can overdub, but they were meant to be solo guitar pieces. So everything that I'm playing is just me in front of a microphone. That doesn't mean that I didn't fix stuff. Like, for instance, I'd get through a whole tune and I'd botch the ending, but it was a great pass. So the hard part was when you do solo guitar stuff and punching it, you get the ambience of the room changing. Even if the guitar's positioned just a little bit different. And we were recording everything really hot. So even if I was breathing differently, you could hear it. And it was really frustrating because it's like, man, there's nowhere to punch this thing. So we got to start over.
Holy shit. So sometimes you had to take it from the top again?
Because I couldn't find a place, because there was so much stuff going on in certain places musically where it just wasn't working. And I was getting like, I can hear that little punch thing there. So that ain't going to work. So, the songs were meant to be played just one guy. Yeah.
Wow. A couple of the tracks on there, Kicking a Rock, I really liked that one. It was just like, it was like a perfect title. It was just kicking a rock, man. It was very laid back, really chilled out. Is like, what's anything in particular about that?
I had written the tune a long time ago, and a lot of these tunes, actually, I wrote a good chunk of these tunes when I was in my 20s. Didn't record them until all these years later, but that one was recorded, and a friend of mine had heard it and said, "What do you call that?" And I said, "I don't have a title for it." And they said, "It sounds like a boy walking along the river with a fishing pole, kicking a rock." I'm like, perfect.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's perfect. I mean, the title is perfect, man. That's exactly what it sounded like. Very laid back, very cool. And then the title track, the performance, I thought it was a great closing song. And you got 2 guitar tracks on there. And I was curious in the very beginning to open the song up what guitar that was, because it really sounded great.
Well, thank you. Well, actually, it's not 2 tracks. It's actually 1 track.
It's 1 track.
The whole tune is 1 track.
Holy shit!
Yeah, there's no overdub. It's just a 1 guitar.
Wow.
The tune was kind of inspired actually by Michael Hedges' song called "Hot Type," which is off of Aerial Boundaries. Although Michael's tune is musically completely different, but I wanted something where I could. The whole record was done finger style, except for this one song. This is the only song on the record I played with a guitar pick. So I was trying to figure out a way to get that rhythmical thing going, da-dunk, 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 and a melody going at the same time with all the other junk. So, I had to work on the pick technique for quite some time to be able to get that muted sound and keep the open strings on the high end of the guitar ringing out. And all of my songs actually are bizarre tunings. I tune the guitar in all kinds of strange ways. So, well,
Hedges did that a lot, didn't he too?
He did. Yeah. He did. And I was extraordinarily influenced by him in a big way. So, the sound quality on it, we can thank Craig for that. He captured what I was doing.
And I can't believe that's not 2 tracks. You did a great job on it. Holy crap. Do you know a woman called Vicky Genfan?
I don't.
Okay. She does a lot of this open tuning stuff. I'm just curious. Let's talk about, you've worked with a lot of really cool folks. And so I'm going to throw out a few names and tell me how you got the gig and the nature of the engagement. And if you have a cool or interesting story about working with them. First would be Roberto Carlos.
Roberto Carlos. This was probably my first big recording opportunity. And I remember we did it. It was at, one of them was at A&M Records. I think the first one was A&M Records. And Jeff Carlisi was on the session. Dean Parks, John Hobbs, and Abraham Laboriel. I think it was Abraham.
It's a pretty impressive rhythm section there, man.
Well, anyway, it was Charlie Colello was the one who was producing and writing the music and everything. And he's the one who, asked me to come. And of course I was just big time intimidated and scared, really. But I was 1989, 89. Yeah. So I was about 26, I think. And basically, one of the cool things about this thing was we were, obviously all of us are Dean Parks fans. I mean, and I couldn't believe I was actually in a room with this guy. So he said, well, why don't you, on this particular tune, why don't you play the electric? I'll do the acoustic stuff. I'm like, yes, sir. We'll do. Just let me know whatever you want me to do. I'll do it.
Yeah.
So the engineers are getting sounds and they're like, Doug, play your guitar. I want to get it, check the sounds. And anyway, they weren't digging my sound. And I was giving them the best I had. It was like, man, the guitar is just not sounding good. And I'm just like freaking out. I'm sweating, In meantime, in those days, we were recording live, so there was a partition. And I saw Dean kind of squatting down and walking through the partitions at a level where he was underneath where the line of sight where they could see through the glass coming from the other room. And I saw him, and he looked at me and kind of, did one of these thumbs, the finger over the mouth, be quiet things.
Yeah.
The engineer hadn't put the microphones on my speakers correctly.
Oh my God. And
anyway,
he spotted it.
He fixed it. And I learned so much from that.
Wow.
You want to talk about, wow, this guy not only saved my butt, but he also didn't embarrass anybody in the process. So I'll never forget that. I'm sure he doesn't even have a recollection of it. I haven't seen Dean in so long, but I'll never forget how deeply that impacted me. As far as humility and this man wanted to give me every opportunity to be able to, sound good.
That's so cool.
So grateful for that.
Wow, that is really cool. And you must have felt so relieved also just identifying what the problem was.
I never, ever would have thought to check it. Yeah. I mean, I was freaking out anyway. So, and there were other musicians in the room. So not other musicians, the musicians, the guys. And I'm like, wow. And everybody's hearing this over their headsets. The guitar doesn't sound good. And I'm like, oh, wow. I'm done before I even start.
Wow.
But anyway, it worked out well. And then I think I did 2 other records with them after that. At Westlake, I think was one of the places we recorded. And I remember spending one day there in the studio just with me, him, and the producer. And he was like, Doug, I want the solo to sound like eagles flying. So I was going through my patches. I gave him my best one first, and he says, that's not it. So anyway, I went through 30 different sounds. And then I thought what Tommy Tedesco had always had these little tricks that he did, and I had read about it and used to go to sessions with him to sit and watch him and learn. And so I finally said, I know, I've got this special one. I know this is the one. And I brought it up. He goes, that's it. This is after we had gone through all this. It was the first one I had given him. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting psychology that happens with folks. And listen, as a musician, I've got a lot of insecurity, so I get it. It's like I'm never quite sure of myself. So, not saying that to in any way embarrass Roberto Carlos, because he's amazing. But you want your art to be right. So, you go through this process. You have to go through the process in order to find it, you know. So anyway, I thought that was a cute little
very cool. Talk about Kenny Loggins. Talk about a classic artist.
I had the good fortune of filling in. I think the first time I filled in, it was for Danny Donnelly, who was playing with him at the time. And then after that, I did some where Chris Rodriguez was not able to make it. But the first time I played with Kenny was a live TV show. And I got a call on a Saturday night around 9:00. And I think Danny had maybe hurt his arm or something. I don't remember. But anyway, you don't turn down that opportunity.
Sure.
Can you play at CBS on Monday morning? So my dear friend Shem Von Schreck had recommended me, as he has for many things, and which I'm so grateful. But anyway, I think I met up with Danny like that night. He was playing at a club in Huntington Beach, and I went down and he gave me the tape of this song. I went home or the CD, and I got in the car and started listening to it, and I'm like, oh no. Just instant panic, because it was like all acoustic stuff. It was, and Kenny's stuff is very deceptively involved. It's not just strum. It was all this very, exact stuff. And it was just a lot of information to digest in such a short period of time. And I was pretty stressed, but, met, at the studio, like at some god awful hour, 7 a.m.
The next day?
Monday morning.
Okay, so you had like a Sunday to look at it.
I had Sunday to get this together. but it wasn't your standard diatonic progression. It was kind of all over the place, and the guitar part was very signature to the song. So it wasn't just like pick a few notes. You got to pick the right notes.
Yeah.
And sing. So anyway, I stayed up and I did this, and it was quite stressful, but I got to the studio. We ran through it in the green room. And then after we went down and did our little sound check on the sound stage, we went back to the dressing room until they were going to actually start the show. And I asked the people that were taking us back up, are you going to bring us down here early? Because I want to retune the guitar because it's cold down here. But I didn't want to take the guitar into a warm situation because the temperature changes would affect the tuning. Well, anyway, come back down, and they're in the taping. They're taping live, right? So they're in it. I grab the guitar, and we start to walk onto the stage to get into our places. They're in commercial, which is like a minute. As we're walking out there, I've got my guitar up to my ear, and I'm like, it's whacked. It's totally out of tune. I mean, really, really bad. And now I'm just like, oh, just adrenaline, big time adrenaline, because they don't stop to let the guitar player tune, right?
Yeah.
So I'm walking up there, and literally, I'm trying to walk, tune, plug in, sit in my seat. Cameras are on us. There are people, the audience, and it was the Wayne Brady show. And you could hear the commercial, and then Wayne Brady comes back in and starts to do his intro for Kenny Loggins' new record, the song off his new record. I think the song was called "With This Ring." And then anyway, I literally was still tuning, ladies and gentlemen, Kenny Loggins, and I just tweaked that last string. Boom!
Wow.
2, 3, 4. Ba-da-ga-ga-ga. And I was like, oh. I still, when I think about it freaks me out. But it came off fine. Everything was great. I mean, but I might have looked okay on camera, but I wasn't okay inside. But that seems to be the story of my life, man. I get thrown into these clutch situations, but anyway, that was a growing experience.
Sure. Did you earned your money that gig? That's for sure, man. When a situation like that, are the other guys in the band aware of what's going on? Or they're all
me?
Yeah, or are they all like they got their own last minute minutia that they got to deal with?
Nobody else knew. Okay. No, I was just over there. Yeah, everybody's got their own minutia going on. Yeah, I was literally just like, because I was the one who starts the song. The song starts off just with guitar, and if it had been out of tune, it would have been a disaster.
Did you ever tell Kenny about it?
Never. No, I didn't.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I haven't shared that story with many people, actually, but yeah, it was definitely one of those life-changing moments. I think I got a few gray hairs in my beard on that one.
Yeah, better gray than bald. Better gray than bald, Doug. Wow, that's Kenny. If you're listening to this, call up Doug and give him a pat on the back. Wow,
it's kind of funny.
Good story. Thank you, man. How about Al Stewart?
I met Al through Ambrosia. Ambrosia, we go out and do our own shows, and we also, a lot of times, we play as the house band for other artists. So we'll do our set, and then we'll bring out a host of other people. So actually, over the last 18, 19 years, we've played with a good chunk of those folks from the 70s and early 80s. And Al was one of them that we started, I think it was back in 2000. And Al's guitar player, he's had both of his guitar players, Lawrence Juber, who's an amazing guitar player, was one of his guitar players, and Peter White was the other one, who's also great. And I just, Al does a solo a solo thing without a band, where he goes out and plays acoustic and takes a guitar player with him. And one of those two guys, I don't remember who it was, wasn't able to do it. So Al has asked me over the years on several occasions to go out and play with him, and that was a lot of fun. And Al's like a history buff. I mean, the guy, you can't stump him on anything. He just knows everything, and he could be a history professor. And in fact, I can't say for sure, but I think they actually teach a class at one or two universities, maybe one in England and one in the United States, on the lyrics of Al Stewart.
I was going to say, is he American history or UK history or both, or
just anything, world history? He just so, just driving in the car with him from one gig to the next and just listening to him talk. He's so highly educated and very, very funny guy. And he loves his wine. One of the shows we did was just kind of funny. He goes, "Would you like a glass of wine?" I said, "Sure." So I took a sip of it and I said, "Boy, that's really good." He said, what did he say? He goes, "Well, it better. It's about $600 a glass."
Holy shit.
And then he goes, and then he said something like, I've got some even better stuff. I'll have to have you down to my place and to try it." And I said, "Well, would I be able to actually distinguish the difference between a $600 and this other stuff you're talking about?" He goes, "We'll let your palate give you the answer."
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. That's wild. So so you were able to tell the difference between a $600 than a normal wine. It was very apparent.
It was excellent, but hey, I'm a $3 Chuck kind of guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know.
And then I'll and occasionally have a $40 or $50 bottle of wine just because I'm hanging around people who want to do that. And it's better, but the $600, I don't have the palate to distinguish it on that level. It was great,
right?
But I wouldn't be able to equate it into decimal points and dollars. No,
I totally get it. I totally get that. Yeah, I smoke
I'd rather
cigar.
buy a guitar.
Yeah, I hear that, man. No, I know, because I smoke cigars, and if it's more than $10, I don't. You just can't tell the difference. If you spend $50 on a cigar, I don't.
Wow, that must be a Cuban, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't buy them. I'm really content with the $8 to $10 range. It's like I'm good with that. I don't need to.
What are those? El Macanudos or something?
They have a ton of them. And okay. I don't even like Cuban cigars. I think they taste like dirt. They don't have any money. Maybe they have now, but they don't have any money there. The soil is not as good as Nicaraguan. I don't know. Right.
You ever had a chocolate cigar?
Like those, It's a Boy or something like that. When they give you,
I don't even know what it's called. I'm not. My dad was a big cigar guy, but I had a chocolate cigar with a glass of brandy once. It was good.
Yeah, that must have been good.
Yeah.
And then the most famous celebrity you've worked with, and I feel honored, blessed to hear this story about Arnold the Pig.
Yes. Yes. Arnold, that's probably the most famous guy I've worked for. I was 13 years old, and it was at the Stapleton Airport in Denver, and it was snowing, and they brought a news crew down, and I don't know how I ended up into this situation, but they had a red carpet, and they brought a pig off of a jet, and we were playing music. Who knew?
There you go. So, was Arnold into it?
He didn't really give me the time of day, quite honestly.
Wow, that's wrong. It's just wrong.
It really is messed up from a damn pig, right?
Yeah, man, that's rude. Hey, are you working on anything now that you're excited about?
Musically, I'm after I got the performance done, I've been kind of like just laying, kind of breathing from that. That was a big weight off my shoulders to just get that done. I'm working on things, with my playing, if you're speaking about playing stuff, music stuff, I'm just working on, trying to be able to play what I'm hearing in my head, which is kind of a ambiguous answer, but a lot of my practice routine is spent like I'll sing stuff and I'll try to play it back and I'll, just that kind of thing. It's not really a chop thing. It's more, can I connect my hands to my ears kind of stuff.
Man, that's really interesting. I never thought about doing something like that.
Well, George Benson, I heard George Benson live when it was 1980, I believe. And one of my first exposures to jazz guitar was George Benson's Cookbook. My dad had this record laying around when I was a kid. And it just always blew me away how effortlessly he was able to play lines on the guitar. And there were horn lines, which are very difficult to play on the guitar because it's all up and down and across at the same time. And he just articulated this stuff so well. And I've always dreamt of being able to have a quarter of the ears that guy has. So, I pretty much just try to spend my time working on that, my ears, and trying to find new ways to play things. I learned things from. I remember this young teenager, showed me this thing once, and I never thought of it. It was like, that's so cool. I understood it when he showed it to me, but I fully understood it, and I took it and I incorporated it into my playing. My point being that I'm a student of music, a student of the guitar. I am humbled by the fact that God has blessed me with the ability to be able to play music and more so even make a living doing it. I'm so grateful for that. So my attitude is that I can learn from anybody. I learn from my students. I'm very humbled. To me, to be given a talent is a great responsibility. So I want to do my best to always remain in check and stay humble and realize that, it's kind of like me and you or other people. I have my particular voice, when I'm talking to you, it sounds like me. It's distinctly me. When you talk, it's distinctly you. And to learn to be comfortable in that and walk in that, and realize that I'm not going to be able to sound like that guy over there. I'm not going to be able to sound like you. It's not a question of better or this or that for me. It's just more like, man, that guy's got something going on. Okay, if I want to turn it into a football game and start getting into that mindset, which is, well, I can do this better than him. I don't go there with that. I'm more like, man, that's really cool what he's doing, and I want to learn from that. Like I had said earlier, just to be a student of music and try to take from all the different experiences and the people that I am fortunate enough to cross paths with.
So it's that's the one good thing about. Not one good thing. There's so many good things about the guitar, but it's, the expression "school's never out for the pro," and you
very, very true.
Yeah, you certainly, are an example of that, which I think is really cool. You were born in Dallas, but you said that your family made a few moves before settling down in Colorado. How old were you when you moved there?
I just finished the 5th grade, so we had moved from Connecticut to Colorado, and I spent the rest of my days in that small mountain town, Evergreen.
What was your childhood like growing up?
It was great. And when I say that, it also had its series of hurt too, My folks went through my folks who are still married went through a breakup for about a year, which really turned my world upside down. So, it definitely was not perfect.
Yeah.
But I was blessed. I would spend my summers at my grandparents down in Texas on the Oklahoma-Texas border out in the country. They lived out in the boondocks. And my grandfather, he was a boat repairman at this marina at this lake where we all used to hang out at. But in his early days, he was a farmer.
Oh, wow.
So it was get up and do work. There was a work ethic thing happening. So, and you weren't working to earn money. You do this because that's what you do to contribute to the family.
Sure.
So my summers, my brother and I would go down there, and we'd do work around his land and stuff, and then the rest of the day would be dirt bikes, water skiing, and guitar playing.
Oh, did your brother play also?
No, my brother didn't play. I just pretty much did it on my own, but that was part of my daily routine.
Was playing guitar
when I wasn't hanging with the local kids down there. And then my time in Colorado was amazing because I got exposed to the wilderness and mountains and hiking. And my dad, we traveled a lot, so I got to go to a lot of places. Spent several months living up in Alaska with him because he would be up there working for, a year at a time. In the commute, well, one summer he brought us up there. So when it was sunny all night long,
Oh, that's cool.
So I lived up, spent time at Fairbanks, went fishing on the Yukon River, and lived in Alabama, Connecticut, Texas. So, and I got to see a lot of the United States because my dad's job was taking us around a lot. So,
what did he do?
My dad was a fundraiser. He initially was working for what became the United Way. It was originally the United Fund, but he broke off and started his own company and he was very successful at it. He was a very hard worker, and he would raise money for hospitals in more rural parts of the country. So they would hire him to come and, I don't know all the technicalities of what
Sure.
he did, but meeting with philanthropists and stuff to be able to acquire the funds to be able to build medical research centers and things like this in rural parts of North Dakota and Wisconsin and, places like that.
Wow. That sounds like one of those jobs or businesses that never ends. It's like you got so many I's to dot and T's to cross.
Yeah. I love my folks. They're amazing people. And my dad, did very well. Was a hard worker. He grew up on a farm. He wanted to get the heck out of Dodge. It was like, I'm done with this. So he went and got an education and then went on to do that. And, he did real well. And I'm grateful to him for the life he provided for my family, our family.
Yeah. Very cool. What did your brother wind up doing? He's not involved in music.
No, my brother's actually basically retired. He's younger than me. My brother did several different things, but my brother basically manages his properties.
God bless him.
He's like a
real estate investor,
self-made millionaire guy.
Good for him.
Or a couple million. He won't tell me exactly what it is, but I know he takes a lot of vacations.
Good for him, man.
Yeah, I'm very proud of him and very happy for him. And he's a great guy. He's a very heroic kind of guy. He was a guy who stuck. Some girl was trying to commit suicide in this building once, and everybody was just looking and gawking and like, look at that, And he stuck his hand through a glass window and held on to her till the fire department got there. And then, I said, well, why didn't you kick out the window? But, you don't think about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's that kind of person. And he's a great bro.
That's cool, man. That is a nice thing. What are some of the bigger obstacles you've had to overcome throughout this musical journey, Doug? Either music related, business related, or personal?
Biggest obstacles,
just challenges.
I would say fear. Fear is a terrible thing, and it always really surprises people when I tell them. But I struggle profoundly with stage fright. It's heavy for me, and it's never gone away. I've learned how to manage it better. I can kind of, in some strange, I'm not saying that people that ended up getting hooked on drugs that were musicians were doing it because they were scared, whatever. But I can see how anesthetizing yourself could certainly make it easier to get out there on a stage. Because I've had my moments of that in my past where, I would get inebriated and, man, I wasn't afraid at all tonight, But the stage.
That's interesting. That's an easy. I could see that being an easy way. A very easy way to fix that to quote fix that problem.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. So I'm a people pleaser, which is not. I'm not happy about that. It's been debilitating to me. I think it would be helpful to me to not care so much about what other people think one way or the other. Sure. I think there's something liberating in that. And I think as I've aged, I've gotten better at it.
Good.
But I think it's held me back a lot in a lot of things I probably could have done. But because of it, the amount of stress that it creates for me, it's heavy. It's weird because I see friends of mine who don't have any issues with it at all. And I'm like, man, I'd pay big money to be able to because this isn't about being a musician anymore. This is about me. This is about the person, and I don't know where it comes from necessarily. Deep insecurities, I guess.
Well, plus when you have that pleasing thing, it's almost like there's no barometer because it's like you are almost surrendering that, you're surrendering that to an unknown. So it's like, it's almost like a no-win in that situation, because how do you read that? How do you tell, have you met your goal tonight? You can't.
I don't know. A lot of it comes from perfectionism. I'm very much a perfectionist. And then I got that other thing going on at the same time. So they don't help each other.
No, that's,
I've tried to learn to accept it as much as possible and just realize, like it or not, for me, it's part of my nature. I'm pretty much, like I said, I'm kind of a shy, introverted kind of person until I get comfortable with people, and then I come out of my shell and it's like I'm a different guy, But that's probably true with a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, playing on stage is always been tough for me.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that. I've spoken to a lot of musicians who share the exact same stress about that. Very talented guys like yourself, guys that are really seasoned in our age bracket, and it's not I'm sure you know this already. It's not an isolated thing. There's a lot of guys that are, dealing with that.
Well, I'd heard about, I don't know I think it was Carly Simon was one of the people that had stage fright. I hope I don't misquote here, but I think it was her because I don't think she did a lot of touring. And stories about Jimmy Stewart, vomiting before going on a stage, Wow. I mean, I hope I'm getting the right people, but one way or the other, I know that these stories about whoever it is were accurate stories when they were told to me. It's feeling comfortable in your own skin and having the freedom of not really caring. I'm a caring person. Caring is the wrong word, but where you just feel like, you know what, you don't like it, no problem.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Right.
Rather than, oh no, what can I do to fix that so you're going to like what I do or you like me or whatever.
Yeah. No,
and that's the kind of jacked up kind of garbage that I've struggled with.
Well, it's tough too. It's even worse in your situation because it's not like being comfortable in your skin is tough enough for like the average guy that's not getting on stage in front of 5,000 people or at a clip, and you add that to it. It's tough, man. It's a challenge, man.
So that's why I don't drink. I just do crack.
Good move, Doug.
Hey.
If you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you have wanted young Doug Jackson to have benefited from, assuming you're open to listening?
Don't waste time. I've wasted a lot of time on silly, stupid ventures or being lazy, and not taking advantage of the opportunities I've had the way I should have. That's probably one of the biggest ones. And that kind of ties into the last question too, which would be, what? Don't give away your power by, if somebody doesn't like you or what you're doing, get over it. Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's like, that's life. If I could go back in time, that would probably be, some of the things I would say to myself for sure. And to listen to my gut. And act on it, even, if it scares the crap out of me or if it's going to hurt real bad, like in a personal situation, if you got to make a decision, that's going to be painful to either you or other people, but in the long run, it's the best move to make. I think that's one of the big things I would have done because, being a people pleaser in a scenario like that, you make decisions that are crippling for years, as opposed to let's just hurt for a little while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, like ending a relationship or something like that.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I could see that. That's a tough thing to do. That's a tough thing to do. Period.
Yeah, it's so it is what it is, but we're whatever it is that makes us who we are, as far as the way we deal with problems or other people, I try to I could either get really down on myself and, feel bummed out that, wow, you didn't do this because of that. But I just try to, now as I've matured, I've just tried to embrace it as part of the big package, and that all of us, all human beings are beautiful, and we all have garbage in our lives, and we have to take responsibility for it. Yet I just try not to get too focused on the negative aspects now, but try more to think about, the beautiful parts, and
I totally get. And thinking about looking backwards never serves anybody. There's never an upside to looking backwards, man,
No, there's definitely not. But, we're not machines either. So it's like when the thoughts come, you have to learn how to extend grace to yourself.
Yeah. Forgive yourself. Yeah, for sure, man. I remember I heard an interview years ago. I think it was Troy Aikman from the Cowboys, the quarterback, and they asked him, "What's the best asset a quarterback has?" And he said, "A short memory."
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was good stuff.
That's a good metaphor right there.
Yeah. Cause what are you going to do? You can't live through that bad shit or silly decision or wrong move, that ain't going to help you for the next time, if you're hung up on that.
Well, this is the funny thing about musicians, at least it seems like with musicians, when you watch a ball game, you're looking for the total outcome. So the quarterback can have a crappy first half and then come back and win the game, but nobody really remembers the crappy part of the game. You won the game. a guy that gets on a wave to surf it. You know, you can't rehearse that.
Right.
You get on it, it's going to break differently every time. The swell's going to be different. So it's like, well, he almost got nailed. He made it. What? You know, or he didn't.
Right.
But sometimes I wish that we as musicians were the same way, because I think musicians are very critical of one another when it comes to making mistakes. Oh, he played a wrong note, you know, or maybe that's because I've been watching too many YouTube videos. But I'm like, I'll go watch it, you know, watch Eric Johnson do his performance of Cliffs of Dover, and I see, like, you know, hundreds of thumbs down. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that. You can't pay any attention to that. Yeah, but you got to realize these same people, if they were sitting there in front of Eric Johnson, they'd be like, oh my God, that was so great.
It's like, so what that there was a glitch at bar 31 that was like a microsecond.
I know, man. I don't know.
But anyway,
I never get involved in that shit. It's just not, there's just no upside to even looking at that stuff, you know?
Is there any medication that you could prescribe for me?
Isn't weed legal out there? You're in California, man. I don't know.
True. That's true. No, I don't smoke weed anymore. It's been a long time, but
I had a guy.
Anyway.
I don't have too many. Surprisingly, I don't have too many trolls. But I was interviewing. Do you know Chasm Sultan?
I know of him. I don't know him personally.
I interviewed him one time, and I don't know like the history of Utopia, but he made a comment about Roger Powell, who played the, and for some reason I thought he said Roger Glover. So I said, oh yeah, from Deep Purple. And so, you know, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm interviewing a lot of people, and you know, it's kind of like when you're on tour and you're going every day. Like, do you realize if you're in Chicago or St. Louis? No, it's like
right.
You just don't. And so, I mean, I make mistakes, right? And so some guy made a comment on there. He says, it's clear the interviewer knows nothing about the history of music in Western civilization.
What?
I thought that was so funny. I was like, I never respond to people like that, because if you think I'm an asshole, that's totally cool. You have that right. I am certainly not going to argue with you. But I did say, hey, listen, you know what? You caught me. I definitely made a mistake, but I thought that might have been extending that a little too far, but hey, if that's how you feel, you know, and I said, thank you for listening. That was it.
Yeah. Right. Well, this is why I choose not to hang out with, you know, certain folks.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but anyway,
you know, whatever. Okay. You're right. I don't. Next, you know, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Hey,
you know,
exactly.
I was just funny because I was like, what was funny to me is like, I would never, and of course the worst thing to do is look at somebody else through your own expectations, but I would never I would never come to that conclusion. I was like, how do you even come to that? You must put a lot of thought in. I would never even put that much thought into listening to somebody else's thing. Right. You know, like if I heard, and this is the God's honest truth, I've seen hundreds of concerts. I can't remember hearing a bad note. But if I would have, it's like the time it would take me to think about that. Why would I would never use that time I have on that. Right. That's what I don't get. I'm like, wow, of all the things you could have occupied your mind with, why would you waste it on that? Right. And I'm like, you know, just give your wife a hug or something, or read a book. I don't know. Just go to the bathroom. You know, it's more productive than that.
I don't generally like to be around critical people. I mean, we all have to deal with it from time to time, but life's too short, man. You know, and sometimes you just kind of have to say good riddance and wash your hands of it. And but sometimes you don't have the luxury of walking away from it. You might have to work with people. Yeah. Or you might have them in your family circles. Yeah. But I think I've managed, gotten better at being able to have a kind of a filter, where in the past I might have reacted a certain way. And now I just kind of like, breathe, pause, take a deep breath. Yeah,
that's what you have to do, man, because it's like it's just not worth getting stroked out over, you know.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for sharing that, man. It was really cool. Let's talk gear for a few minutes. What is your go-to guitar right now, and what other two guitars might round out your top three?
I would say I've been playing an EJ Strat for a couple of years, with Ambrosia. That's pretty much what I've been playing all the time. But I think I'm going to pull one of the other ones out and put that one away for a while. Probably one of my other Strats. My acoustic, my Old Man River guitar, I've got two of them. They're both custom made, and those are the guitars that I use primarily on the performance. There was a couple other ones I used. I used a Martin. I don't remember which tune it was. Marathon. I think Marathon on my record. I used a Martin. That's pretty much it, man. I'm a pretty when it comes to gear, I've kind of done a 180. Back in the early 90s and stuff, I was much more into acquiring the gear and had the refrigerator rack full of stuff and the VHT amplifiers and 3 or 4 preamps in the rig. I mean, and I love just plugging into an amp with a few pedals. That's it. And that's where I'm at right now. I sold most of that stuff from back then. I was never a big fan of it anyway. It sounds cool, but it takes something away from the fingers to the amp as far as the way it feels for me. Sure. That's why everybody loves Jeff Beck's playing so much.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
That guy makes you melt. Yeah, man.
Just plug in. That's it.
So you're primarily a Strat guy, basically.
Yeah. But around the house, when I'm practicing, I'll play through my jazz box or the Gibson or one of those guys, or I have a Telecaster that I play a lot too. I love playing country music. My dad was from the South, so in his side of the family, so there was a lot of country music being played when I was younger too.
Very cool, man. Desert Island Discs. If I asked you to pick your top 3 in no particular order, and just for now, knowing you could change tomorrow, what would be your knee-jerk reaction?
Oh, wow. Pat Metheny's White Album. I love that record. There's a song on there called San Lorenzo, which to me is one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written.
It's nice when you have that, isn't it? When you have a beautiful piece, that's like when you have a song that hits you like that, it's like medicine, man. It's funny because sometimes I'll go years without listening to these records, and then I'll revisit it, years later and go like, oh my gosh. Everybody's out there talking about the new thing. I'm like, well, go back and check that out. Yeah.
It's so awesome. So that's definitely one of my favorites. And Michael Hedges' Aerial Boundaries.
Yeah, you had mentioned that one.
There's a song on there called Ragamuffin. And the reason I love that, Michael, like Pat, is so unique and able to convey heart through his playing. It's just pure heart. There are people out there that've got maybe more technical facility, but the pure heart coming out of it. And every time I listen to it and the Pat stuff, it just hits me on a soul level. That's the stuff, man, for me. I mean, if you can move me, then you've done that's that's the stuff I'm going to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a third disc, I'll have to say Yes 90125.
Interesting. That's the first. I remember when that came out, man. That was big stuff then.
And the reason I love all Yes's stuff, and I love Steve Howe, big time.
Yeah, great.
But the reason I'm, since you're giving me three choices, the reason I would choose that one is because the other two records, the one record is a jazz record, melodic jazz with a bit of a country flavor to it, a Midwestern feel. The other was the acoustic thing, and this one, the Yes record, kind of encompasses a bit of everything all together.
Yeah.
Because you got the best vocals ever, some of the best vocals ever done. You've got all the technical stuff that I love about music. The odd meter, the harmonic changes.
They were pushing technology in there too. They did some stuff that was pretty new at the time, if I remember on that album. What didn't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That song they did.
Even like Changes. Yeah, great song. It was Owner of a Lonely Heart was on that, I think, right?
That might have been the first one on the record. Actually,
yeah,
was the one that was getting spun on the radio all the time.
Right.
But just from a tunes perspective, I think Big Generator sonically sounded better.
Okay, good song.
Than 90125. But the tunes for me on 90125, they're great songs. And it bridged the gap between the old Yes that I grew up listening to and this new thing.
I saw them down here, man, like about 3 years ago, right before Chris Squire passed, maybe 6 months before. What a show. I mean, Steve Howe is just fucking amazing.
Isn't he amazing?
Yeah, it was just like breathtaking, He's like a mad scientist with his guitar, man, or his guitars. He's just.
It's interesting. Ambrosia did the Yes Cruise back in 2013. And interesting thing was I had on this given day on the boat, on the ship, I mean, they don't like the boat word.
Oh, they don't?
Not if you're working on a ship. They don't want to hear that boat thing. So I forgot my iPod. I'd left it backstage somewhere, and I ran all the way to the back of the ship to get it. And I did get it, and I started to walk back across the ship, which is huge. And I heard off in the distance, "Hey, Doug," and it was the girlfriend of Yes's manager, who I had met a couple of days earlier when she came with him to hear Ambrosia's performance on this ship. She waves me over, and there are the guys from Yes, minus Steve Howe. He wasn't there. And I start walking over, and a couple of these big dudes came up on me. No, he's okay. They invited me in to their, because you can see them. It's an open space. It isn't a back room. It's just kind of got one of those little poles, with a thing around it. Anyway, they bought me a drink. Got to talk a lot with Alan White, and got to talk to Chris Squire, John Davison, their new singer.
Yeah. He sounds great.
Isn't he amazing?
I mean,
he sounds so good.
Yeah.
And such a sweet guy. And so anyway, we're doing all this, and then and so I think it was John who said, "So Doug, what are you doing when you're not doing Ambrosia?" I said, "I just recorded this record, Storm Chaser." I mean, not Storm Chaser, but the performance.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I'd love to hear it someday. So this is one of those moments where I just would do what I wouldn't normally do. I'd normally say, nod my head, but I said, well, as a matter of fact, I just went and got my iPod, and I have it right here. Would you like to hear a number?
Good for you, man. That probably took a lot of courage for you to do.
It did, but it was weird. It was one of those moments when I didn't think about it. It just kind of happened.
Felt natural.
It wasn't coming from a weird place or anything. So I gave it to John to listen to, and he was like, "This is great," So I don't remember exactly verbatim what he said. Steve's going to shit or love this or something. It was a complimentary thing. And then I think that he passed it along. I don't remember if Chris Squire checked it out, but anyway, he was going on and on about it. And then, so the party kind of broke up, and we're going to go back to our rooms. Would you like to tag along to me? And of course I said no. Yeah. So I did this. And so I just remember the little maneuver that was happening to get back up to the rooms.
They had to go outside. They had to make sure nobody
they went down into the bowels of the ship and went through where the employees worked and back up that way. But anyway, that was a very long way of telling you what my third favorite record was. Sorry.
No, that was cool. That's a good story, man. So you got to hang out with the guys from Yes that night, partied with them a little bit.
Yes, it was great, and it was shortly before. I think it was a year. I don't remember what year Chris died, but this was 2013, so it was within a year or two that he passed.
Probably.
So it was really cool that I got to meet him.
He looked like a real big, imposing guy. Was he in person?
He's very tall.
Yeah.
I'm 6'1", and I think he's at least 6'5", 6'6", 6'7".
Wow.
Kind of the way Alan Parsons is a tall guy.
He's big too. I didn't know that.
Very, very tall.
Wow. That's cool, man. Hey, I'm going to ask you a tough question. A very tough question. What do you like most about yourself?
Oh, wow. My sense of humor. I think I'm an easygoing guy. I think I'm pretty low maintenance for the most part.
Wait a minute. If I asked your wife that, would she agree?
Of course not.
Because I always think I'm low maintenance, and my wife's one of the first things she says is like, she goes, "You're high maintenance," like, and she'll say that just when I'm thinking like, man, I'm really got my shit together. I'm a non, I don't,
exactly.
Yeah,
no. Well, you see, the wives get to see all the garbage, that we have. So I'm definitely not saying I'm perfect. But I think when it comes to, in a social setting, I'm pretty easygoing. So if it was a group of people, I'm very opinionated. I do have strong opinions, but and if something seems completely whacked out, I'll fight for something that I don't want to go down that path. But usually I'm pretty compliant with people. All right, you guys want to go do this? All right. Let's go,
right.
And be cool with it and go have fun rather than whimper and moan and bitch about it the whole rest of the day.
Well, that's cool. Well, you said you're kind of more a pleaser, so that.
Yeah, but exactly.
Yeah, but, you're able to sort of like.
I have a very demented sense of humor. Actually, you're not seeing it in this interview.
I'm not, man. I feel like left out, man.
Well, Craig, I always wanted to get into broadcasting. That was the first thing I wanted to do. That's what my teacher asked me when I was about 5 years old. What do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I'd really like to get into broadcasting.
Really? Is that true?
No.
Well, that's cool. Sense of humor, low maintenance. Yeah, if I said low maintenance, I could never get away with that with my wife. I think I am, but I guess apparently not. I don't see.
Well, the wives won't, but the wives won't say that. No, they get to see the whole enchilada. So,
but I always feel like even the whole enchilada is overall pretty low maintenance, but apparently it's not by a long shot. I mean, I could just see her looking at me right now, like, and she's really like very direct, and she makes me own my shit. So
yeah, you need to be healed of that.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen anytime soon. Most important thing your dad taught you? Is your dad still around?
He is. I just got done visiting him. He's very sick. He's got a very, very horrible neurological disease.
Man, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. My dad is one of the most generous people I've ever met. Incredible generosity, a very good work ethic, a great sense of humor, and he always taught me to persevere and to believe in myself and my talent and to not give up.
That's great, man.
I love him. I love him. I love him for that.
That's really great to have parents that were so supportive of your music career like that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that was like what he would punish me if I'd gotten in trouble. He would say, well, you're grounded for a month. I want to see a brand new song out of you, and you're going to perform it for me at the end of the week.
That's
so it's constructive,
great.
at least.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. How about your mom? Most important thing she taught you?
And I love my mother, too. She's awesome. I think my mother taught me to empathize with people. She's a very forgiving and compassionate person, and I think she taught me how to listen to people's hearts rather than focus on their words, but more about the motivations and intentions behind them. She was a very perceptive individual, and I'm grateful for that. She's a loving soul.
That's great. I'm happy for you, man. Is she still around too?
She is. She's actually, she looks great. I couldn't believe it. I said, God, you look like you're 65. She's pushing 80.
That's awesome.
She looks great, and she's very lucid. And she's got her hands full right now with my dad. But I'm just grateful for, like I said early on. There's no perfect situation. Human beings were all broken in some manner or another.
Sure.
But I really am. With all the troubles and some of the troubles we had along the way growing up and the marital troubles they had, whatnot, I'm grateful that everything worked out the way it did, and that I've been blessed to have such a wonderful family and brother as well. And
you've been together with your wife a long time too, no?
Yeah. Jenny and I met in 2001, and we got married in 2003, and
17 years, man. Congratulations. That's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. She's awesome. And I love traveling with her. That's one of the things that I love doing with her. We're good. She's got an adventurous spirit and heart.
That's very nice.
That's a real cool thing.
That is cool, man. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Do you have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Let's see. Yeah, I like geography.
Wow, that's a first. That's interesting. As in what context?
It's kind of strange. I like to read maps.
Yeah, that's kind of strange, though.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
Not really. It's pretty like innocuous, though. I mean, if you got to have a weird, it's like it's fun. It's like if you got to have a weird hobby, that's like perfect. You're not going to hurt anybody reading maps,
right?
Or yourself.
Joe's always Puerta from the band's always making a joke because when we're in a plane and they don't have a flight tracker, he's like, Doug, can you tell us where we are right now? And I'll look out the window, and I can usually, if there's decent landmarks in the topography, I'm pretty close most of the time.
That's awesome, man.
And I love adventures. I love doing like I just got back from Colorado and went got on an inner tube and went down a river that was 50 degrees. Doing stuff like that. I love doing stuff like that.
Like outdoor adventures.
Yeah, love it.
That's cool, man. Did you grow up doing a lot of stuff?
Yeah, I did actually. A lot of snow skiing. Growing up in Colorado, went skiing a lot. We used to ski up at the town I grew up in. Wasn't not far from places like Vail and Breckenridge and Copper Mountain and Mary Jane. Some places that are pretty world famous ski areas.
Cool, man.
So it was all within 45 minutes of where I grew up.
That's good hobbies, man. 3 more questions, man, and I really appreciate your time. You've been wonderful to talk with, man. You ever had a specific experience that either changed your life or altered the way you think about things? Yeah,
I do. I don't remember the year. I think it was 1997 or 98. It was around that period. I was going through a heavy time personally. And it was in the winter time, and I go down to the beach, and I like cold water, so it doesn't bother me to go in it for a little bit. And I'd gone down to take a swim and just distract myself from what was going on in my life at the time. And I'm a pretty good swimmer, but anyway, I got in the water, and there was nobody out there that day. It was just, which is rare for California, but the time of year it was nobody around. The lifeguards weren't out or anything. And I went out, and it was a big day, and it was a gray day. It was really cloudy out. And I got into a riptide.
Holy crap.
That sucked me out. And the surf was really tall that day, breaking out where I got sucked out into. And I was getting nailed and clobbered, and I was way over my head. It was, anyway, I remember being out there and just crying out to God and just said, God, please save me. It was like, I really thought this was it. I'm just going to die. I'm going to drown. And keep in mind, I'd been getting nailed by these just massive waves. So as soon as I came up, I was trying to get air and get nailed by the next one. Well, as soon as I said that, said that little prayer or whatever, that panic prayer that I said to God, I was like, a small benign wave came while I was on the surface, and I was able to paddle into it to get myself a good 40 yards closer to the beach,
inland,
just where my toes were barely touching the bottom. But I was still getting sucked out, but it gave me enough emotional momentum that I took a deep breath, and I literally went down to the bottom and crawled on the sand, like a crab would, because the water was too strong to swim in. So I crawled.
Holy crap.
I crawled my way up, and I finally got to the beach. I mean, I literally just collapsed, not unconscious, but fell to the ground, weeping like a little baby.
Wow.
I just wept like a baby, and I was out there by myself, weeping like a baby. And when I was done, this unusual feeling of calm and peace came over me, because I was going through some real traumatic stuff in my life. And it just, for that moment, I was just completely at peace. It was like none of that other stuff mattered anymore. It was weird. And the thing is that, if I could bottle that emotion and be able to sustain it, I don't know. I mean, there are probably people that are able to live that way. I wish I could. Because I know cognitively speaking that I can try to rationalize it, but I can't get myself into that space that I was, where it's like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
It didn't matter anymore. All that other stuff did not matter. It was just a sense of warm peace after I had wept like a baby. It was weird.
Wow, that's intense, man.
Thank God, man. I'm just grateful to be here.
Holy shit. Wow. Yeah, man. Wow. I'm like overwhelmed with that. Holy shit. That's pretty
It was a trippy thing, but
did it allow you in any way to like somehow process or deal with the shit you were going through easier after that, or with more acceptance? Or more faith that everything's going to work out no matter what?
It was more of that, I think. I think it was more of knowing that when I was out in the water, feeling like I was going to drown, I was at a place where I had to surrender myself. That's because when I cried out, there was no motivation behind it other than I'm going to die or drown here. So I just kind of surrendered myself. And fortunately for me, on that day, the good Lord watched after me and got me back up to the shore. And so that sense of like, you know what? I don't know how this situation I'm going through personally at that time when I was in it, I don't know how this is going to get better for me. But you know what? The good Lord just watched my back and got me out of this scenario. So I'm just going to trust that it's going to work out.
It's going to work out, yeah.
And that didn't mean that I didn't still have to go through some turmoil.
Sure, of course. But you were able, a little more acceptance or a little more sense of...
a little more sense of letting it go.
Yeah, good for you.
And trying not to get too caught up into all the details of how things are going to work out. If I get in my head, man, things get ugly.
I think a lot of people are like that, man. I think we're all like that, you know?
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to say, what the heck?
Yeah, for sure, man. I had a client many years ago, and he was a recovered alcoholic, and he had been through the program and was a student of AA, and he told me something one time. He said, Craig, there's this dirty 4-letter word that fixes everything. And I said, what's that? He goes, time. And I was like,
wow.
And it was like so simple, right? But isn't it true? And so
totally.
Like a while ago, I was going through some stuff and I just said, man, I know everything's going to be good. But then of course you're like, fuck, I need time to march a little quicker,
You know what?
I know it's going to be fine, but knowing it's going to be fine was like.
Well, the problem is that a lot of times we want to know what the answer is. You know? And it's like, you know what? The answer is never going to turn out the way you think it's going to turn out.
Right.
So, I mean, part of growing, I think, for me has been trying to surrender to the fact that I can't control the outcome of things.
Yeah.
I can do the best with what I have. And if I spend too much time comparing myself to my buddy and what's going on in his life and how he's, got this and that going on and I don't, that's a recipe for unhappiness, and depression.
There's no upside to that. Because as everybody, life is not easy for anybody, and you never know. Whatever something might look on the surface, you don't know what's going on either. I think I don't think struggle is unevenly dealt out. I mean, sure, some people carry more of a burden, but I think overall, and as much of the struggles as you have, you also have a lot of upsides too once you get through them. So
right.
Wow, good for you, man. That was a good story. Thank you. Most important lesson your business has taught you, Doug?
Can I be sarcastic?
Do whatever you want, man. This is your.
Well, this is something. I can't take credit for these words, but the saying is, Hunter S. Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
The music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free, and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side.
Oh, that was great, man. What was that from? Just something you put in Rolling Stone?
I don't know. I just know the quote because I always found it just so like perfect.
And there's also a negative side. That's what makes it such a great quote.
Yeah.
There's also a negative side. That was awesome, man. That is so cool. I'm going to write that down so I could look that up online. The music business, Hunter S. Thompson. Awesome. Thank you for that.
You got it.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you. And last question, man. What's been the biggest change, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this has been deliberate and intentional, and how much is just a natural part of aging?
I think that I've become a better listener than I hope I have, even though I know that probably this interview is a proof that I'm not because I just ramble on.
No, you're totally fine, man. Again, let's get the missus. Is Doug a better listener?
Yeah. Really?
That's the
litmus guy does
test.
His talk.
That's the litmus test.
Yeah. So, but I think I've gotten to be better at being perceptive of what's going on with people. so listening maybe less to their words and trying to really listen to the other stuff that's kind of, you can't really put your finger on it stuff.
Kind of stuff
reading.
like your mom. You said your mom was good at.
Yeah, maybe doing that, reading people. And I think that I'm a little, well, I know I'm a lot slower to react to things than I used to be. I used to
Amen to
react,
that, right?
Just react, Somebody would say something, and we all have our filters, because we grew up with certain communication styles that we did with our folks, whether it be unhealthy or healthy. And we see things through our own prism. So when somebody says something, and the tone or the accent of it in the way it was delivered or the wording, it's real easy to misinterpret things with people. So I think I've gotten better at just taking time to pause. My grandfather told me all along as a kid, but it never registered in my soul. I heard it, but he used to say, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything. That's it. Just shut up, So I think I've gotten better at just, chilling, being a little bit more chilled, because I can get real, kind of up in arms about things, especially when I'm passionate about something and somebody says something that I think is ridiculous. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and that's, my mother's half Italian and French, so she's got that waving the hands thing going on. So anyway,
well, man,
I think that's pretty much in a nutshell. And I think I'm hopefully a little bit more secure with myself, even though I still deeply struggle with the things I already shared with you.
Man, I can't thank you enough for everything. You've been great to talk with and very cool and very kind of you to share everything. And thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I want to tell people where to find you. And first of all, if you see Ambrosia on the road, come out and see the band. Doug Jackson's been their lead guitar player for 18 years. You don't get to maintain a lead guitar slot in an international band that's had, dozens of as popular as Ambrosia is because he's out there doing it every night and he's doing it in the studio as well. And I'm sure 18 years from now, he'll still be in the same slot. So
it's actually ambrosialive.net.
Okay. ambrosialive.net, AMBROSIA live.net. And their touring schedule's on there. Go out and check out the band. Go say hi to Doug. Tell him you heard his interview and what a cool guy he is. Go to DougJacksonGuitar.com and check out Doug's CD. He's got The Performance, which is his acoustic CD. He's got a link to it on there that'll take you to CD Baby. It's a great CD if you're into acoustic music. And his electric album called Storm Chaser, man, he shreds on there, and there's some really good songwriting. If you're into jazz and harmonic stuff, you'll love it. Also, I was surprised that you can actually get guitar lessons from the lead guitar player from Ambrosia. You can connect with Doug. I'm assuming there's a contact form.
Yeah, if they just go to my website, yeah.
Great.
They can contact me through there, sure.
So go to DougJacksonGuitar.com, and there's a contact form. If you're interested in taking lessons from Doug, hit him up on there. Please don't just waste his time. He's a serious guy, and he comes across to me as a guy who's going to give you 110%. He's got a great work ethic. So honor that and give him the 110% back. And you can hit him up on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And that's it.
Craig, I really appreciate it, man. I really, it's been a great talking to you, man.
Thank you, man.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk to you. And I thank you for the opportunity of sharing my story with people.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is great. Thank you for being so transparent. I think everything you said man, you were so real. This is going to resonate with lots of people out there, especially my audience, which is all guitar players for the most part. So come check out Doug on the road when he's with Ambrosia. Support his music and say hi when you see him. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Craig.
You're welcome. Thank you. Everybody, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Doug Jackson for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up and get on our newsletter. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play a guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.